The plane lands at Heathrow at nightfall. The tuna makes its way to the warehouse by 2 in the morning, revealing nothing to a succession of men in high-visibility jackets about its tumultuous history of aquatic and airborne wandering. The drivers in the warehouse never know at the start of a shift where they may find themselves by dawn. At 4 in the morning, Ian Cook receives a command from the control room to drive one of the largest of the articulated lorries over to Bristol. The driver has been doing supermarket runs for the last 15 years. He carries his belongings in a small red bag and has a complicated life, for he has a wife in Lancashire and a friend in Derby. He talks constantly on the journey, covering murders, religious zealots, tax evaders, and child molesters, in a monologue whose unarticulated, yet nonetheless powerful guiding theme is the decline and eventual collapse of contemporary civilization. By early morning, the lorry comes to a stop at the back of an aluminium shed in suburban Bristol, on whose aisles the tuna is placed, 52 hours after it was first levered out of the aphotic brine of the Indian Ocean. The photographer and I crouch and wait behind a refrigerated cabinet, which feels vengefully cold after the torridity of the Maldives. Shoppers amble by, occasionally casting a distracted look at the cuts of the tuna's flesh. To pass the time, I think back to people we have met along the way. I remember Aisha Adza, whose job it is to secure the tuna's packaging material. She ordered the plastic trays from a manufacturer in Thailand. One afternoon, we photographed her in a one-room company flat next to the processing plant. On the wall is her wedding picture, featuring Mohammed Amir, a mechanic in charge of the tuna slicing machines made by... The interest of the photograph seems to hinge on the iron. This is an essay about people who depend on one another and yet have no thought of each other's laundry. It may be one of the tasks of art in the age of advanced logistics to make sure that Aisha is introduced to Linda Drummond, for in the end it is she who stops at the fish counter and picks up some tuna steaks for her family's supper. We ask if we might follow her home. She calls her husband for a second opinion. Later that day, Linda's son, 8-year-old Sam, is unfazed to find 2 strangers in his kitchen. He hates tuna, but not as much as he hates salmon. He hasn't forgotten about the wonders of logistics. He knows a lot about lorries and planes. He is also an expert on the world's oceans and lectures us as to how the Indian Ocean is not an ideal habitat for fish, on account of its unusual warmth and stillness. He notes that the freezing North Sea supports infinitely more forms of life, as storms there constantly stir up the nutrient-laden aphotic layer, which lies 1,000 meters below the waves, and in which the gulper eel, the anglerfish, and the vampire squid live. He also makes the ancillary suggestion, less often remarked upon by marine biologists, that a perpetual killing of fish has left the seas choked with an array of pallid, oceanic ghosts, who will one day gather together to exact terrible revenge on humanity for shortening their lives and transporting their corpses around the earth for supper in Bristol.